This is Qtv News and I am Jenna Wasonko. Thanks for joining us. First, the main local, international and sports news headlines. As the TRRC public hearings resume, two friends tell of their ordeal after being accused of being anti-government. In the week of the University of the Gambia's annual convocation, esteemed Gambian professor Gabriel Fall gave the university's first convocation lecture in over a decade. In business news, a poultry business tells how it can produce enough chicken to cater for the country's needs. We hear how equipping young people with tailoring skills can open up paths to business and dissuade them from attempting dangerous irregular migration journeys. As the Gambia struggles with some of the world's worst road traffic accident statistics, we hear how one driving school is preparing students to be well-prepared and safe drivers. In international news, Italy's ambassador to the Democratic Republic of Congo has been killed in an attack in the east of the country. The family of slain civil rights leader Malcolm X called for the investigation into his killing to be reopened following a deathbed confession which has shed new light onto the incident. On to some sports news. At the Under-20 AFCON in Mauritania, Gambia's young Scorpions seek victory against Ghana to ensure they make it through to the kick-out stages. Those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. Thank you for joining us. If you're just tuning in, this is Qtv News and I am Jenna Wasonko. Now, the TRRC resumed its public hearings after a week break. Two witnesses, a pharmacist and a bartender on Monday, narrated to the commission how they suffered at the hands of the bulldozers in May of 2016. Babukar C has the rest of that.
The two witnesses, Ibrahim Keita, a pharmacist, and Musa Fofana, a bartender, are friends. The witnesses gave their testimonies simultaneously on how they were picked up by the so-called bulldozers on the 11th of May 2016, a day after they had a discussion about the government. According to Ibrahima, the room next to his pharmacy was occupied by a state security agent, and one of the occupants was one Ibrahima John, who worked with the so-called bulldozers. The witnesses told the TRRC they were discussing on how Jammeh was running the country, which also coincided with the arrest of Solo Sandeng and other UDP supporters. They were picked up by the paramilitary the following day and escorted to the bulldozers camped in Kanifing. They suspected that they were reported by one Ibrahima John, who they believe recorded their conversation the previous day.
I liver and started beating me.
Who did that?
Wale okay. Babukar Trawale. Babukar Trawale. If I want to get up, they will push me down.
And who will push you down?
Ibrahim Sise. Alpha Bojang. Alpha Bojang. Babukar Singate. And Babukar Singate. So Babukar Trawale Kalipa. Babukar Trawale was the guy beating me.
According to Musa Fofana, he was accused of being a spy for the UDP who would go to the provinces to go and convince the residents not to go out to welcome Jammeh when his convoy passed by. His denial of all the allegations and refusal to write a statement resulted in his torture.
Bari Musa o kay ngalo ne ko yo ya lapi control because fongole ba moy kan ka fo alkantel lapite alkantel labe wule.
I know that Musa was beaten because he was shouting and he was saying to them, "Why are you beating me? Why are you beating me? You are beating me like this." I heard that.
Musa Fofana went on to tell the commission that one of the bulldozer's secret agents told him that they would be killed at 3 a.m. and that was the exact time they were collected and driven to the cemetery.
So when we were going,
they were
slapping us all the way going. The way they were slapping us, it was really painful. My ear really pained me.
Around for 2 weeks, and
it took me almost 2 weeks. I was suffering from that pain in my ear. No, because he was hearing the slaps that they were. And the slapping was going on with talking. They went on telling us, "We are going to kill you today. Nobody will ever see you people today again."
They explained what happened when they arrived at the Kanifing South Cemetery.
He said to me, "Fofana."
Last word.
He said, "Time is up. Say your last word." I wanted to run away. But if I run away, he will kill me.
At the cemetery, the witnesses said they were threatened and later taken back to the bulldozers camp, where they were kept incommunicado for more than a month and were being moved around various police stations, including Manjai, Bakote, Kotu, Bursubi, Kairaba police station, before being charged for sedition at the Bundung Magistrate Court. They appeared in court a few times until the change of government, when the case was dismissed. Babu Karsi, Qtv News.
A UK-based Gambian professor in practice of the London School of Economics has challenged the University of the Gambia to consider finding answers to possible investment models as part of strategies to sustain its operations. The professor was speaking at the university's convocation lecture, where he also tasked graduates to find answers to the unemployment realities facing the Gambia.
This is the university's first convocation lecture ceremony in over a decade and comes ahead of this year's convocation ceremony, when graduates will be formally conferred with academic credentials as a sign that they have successfully completed their respective programs of study. Invited to lecture graduates on the theme University Education and Socio-Economic Developments in the Gambia is Professor Jibril Fall of the London School of Economics. Professor Fall takes us on a journey down the memory lane of the historical records and a review of university education of Gambians over the course of 75 years, and drawing comparison with the present level of progress to give context to the impact of university education for our socio-economic advancement.
Higher learning did not evolve as pure virtue. As familiar, it had the good, the bad, and the ugly. It attracted people blessed with bright minds, incurable curiosity, extraordinary creativity, enduring diligence, and audacity to reason and question.
The Gambia's 2-decade-old highest learning institution has graduated many Gambians, many of whom are today among the privileged few to have backed high educational qualifications and are now serving the country in various areas of development. Professor Fall underscores the roles and responsibilities of university graduates, placing them in the position he described as actors and factors of socio-economic advancement of their country and the world.
UTG and most modern universities need to navigate a path that balances pure and applied research, the imparting of conceptual knowledge, the stimulation of critical thinking, and training for occupational skills.
Beyond the UTG being the citadel of higher learning in the Gambia, lie increasing economic challenges awaiting sustainable solutions to realize its pursuit of academic excellence comparable to others on the continent. Professor Fall lectures on how other universities manage a similar challenge, also invoking thoughts for the UTG to use academics as a tool to devise its own models for development.
Now, one must examine in the next 5 to 10 years where the different models of investment within UTG need to be considered. Whether the government in its annual subvention should add a top-up which will not be spent but will be invested. Whether the university will begin to go around and find its successful alumni and seek donations from them. Whether it can get companies to give them shares. That model is worth looking into.
From the past to the present, the goal for more university graduates in the country is on an upward trend, alongside registering a record number of women graduating. Professor Jibril Fall observes the substance of what might be missing in the wake of this development. He once again leaves the university with thought-provoking questions on what lies ahead of them after graduation.
Now the numbers are growing. The percentage of women in the mix is growing. If the trend continues, a time will come UTG will graduate more women than men. For that is the reality in many other countries. What might be missing is that little bit of spark that allow graduates to aspire not to get a job, but to aspire to create jobs.
Management of the University of the Gambia, under the leadership of the Vice-Chancellor, were grateful for a successful convocation lecture by a Gambian professor who poured in a great deal of inspiration and motivation for the UTG graduates and students at the ceremony. The UTG this Saturday holds a low-key 13th convocation ceremony at QCity as a result of the impact of COVID-19. Mohamed Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
We will take a short commercial break, and still to come, international, business and sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now, 4 apartments in Tapocota have been consumed by fire, with one of the victims losing $150,000 on Saturday afternoon. Loli M. Camara has the rest of that.
Valuables such as refrigerators, beds, sofas, books, TVs and cars amongst other items all perished in the fire that lasted for hours, according to victims. Alaji Jafune, a tenant from whose house the fire started, explains what happened.
The fire started in my room, and I was at my workshop at the time. I was informed that there was fire in my house. It happened when my wife had traveled. It was caused by power and electric short circuit. When I arrived, I opened the door. The fire was already burning, and we were unable to recover anything.
Mr. Jafune, who is a tailor, said clothes belonging to customers and cars have all perished. Kemo SM Koli, a tenant, explains that he has lost $150,000 planning to buy a car to start a taxi business.
$150,000. I will upgrade myself to buy a vehicle and start some business with it. I also have some box with me, whereby my friends send it to me. Spice, a running athletic spice, between almost 20 pairs. And each spice, if you want to sell it here, they are all brown, you sell it each is $2,500.
Momo Dumbalo, another tenant who was away at the time of the incident, said his family have lost everything in the inferno and needs help.
There's no sleep, there's no mattress, students are not going to school, no uniform, no shoes, no books. If we can help, immediately help, we appreciate.
Alaji Boy, also a tenant, told us that he has just finished renovating the house and added his voice to call for help.
We will come and assist us, definitely, because at the moment we have nowhere to live. And then we are a family member. We are having many young kids with us. We don't have nowhere to go at the moment. So that's our main problem. And then rent now is very, very expensive. So that's our worry now. We don't have nowhere to live at the moment.
These families are calling on the public, the private sector, and anyone who can come to their aid. For QTV News, Loli M. Kamara.
Now on to some business news. The management of Impasse Group have announced the company's readiness to produce a high quantity of chicken enough to serve the entire country. They made this claim on Monday as they took journalists on a conducted tour of the company's hatchery, which produces about 1,500 chickens per hour. Ansumana Isonyasi tells us more.
Established in 2012, Impasse Enterprise has served as the main supplier of chicken for outgrowers and consumers in the country, producing about 100,000 chicks, layers and broilers per month. In doing so, they have created hundreds of jobs for young people daily, the majority of whom are women. Given its capacity and quantity of daily productions, Impasse greatly contributed to the growth of the poultry industry in the country. However, in 2016, the company ceased operations due to the high cost of production. But with the new ban on importation of chicken and reports of a bird flu in neighboring Senegal, MPAS management decided to rejuvenate production as chicken remains in high demand in the country. Taking journalists on a conducted tour of the facility, Aissatou Sanyang, MPAS HR manager, says they have the capacity to produce enough chicken to feed the entire country. However, she adds that they would need government intervention to help them increase production, reduce the cost of chicken, and create more jobs for young people.
If we have the government to help us with a duty waiver on the amount of fuel that we buy, that will bring the cost down. So these are the factors that are affecting our prices. The foreign currency, NAWEC, and also the duty on fuel. At the beginning it was market constraint because people will leave chicks in the Gambia and go to Senegal to import chicks. EFAS has been here for a while. Now what we are trying to tell people is that let's encourage we buy from our fellow Gambians.
Mamadou Mas Job and Dauda, consultant and operations manager respectively, highlighted the company's preparedness to increase the production. However, they also call on government to intervene by granting them a duty waiver on fuel, as the cost of energy remains the company's biggest problem.
Most farmers should get on board, and the government should also come on board and help us so that we can see how best we can expand this poultry farming system for the whole of Gambia to benefit.
Hatchery manager Sana Minte explains the process of hatching, revealing that on a normal day, about 1,500 chicks are hatched per hour.
The capacity of the machine is 38,800 eggs. So we have 3 sets of machines here, which means we are able to incubate 115,000 every 21 days. So we have the supply, we have the capacity that can able to supply the market of the Gambia.
Having resumed operation, MPAS Poultry Processing Company is determined to produce 100,000 dressed broilers and 2 million eggs per month for the Gambia markets and its integrated poultry project, which consists of a hatchery. The company also has a slaughter and processing plant with capacity to process 1,500 broilers into dressed chicken per hour. And as a health precaution, the hatchery has a vaccination center where all chicks are vaccinated before they are released into the market. Answane Sonyasi for Qtv News.
Well, quite impressive. Now, learning and becoming proficient in a trade of skill can open up a range of opportunities for the successful trainee. 19 tailors have graduated after completing between 3 to 5 years training in sewing skills by the Latrikunda Sabiji Tailoring Association. Tailors Association rather. The graduates are now qualified and experienced enough to run their own business. Omar P. Jallo attended the graduation ceremony and he files in this report.
Basic sewing experience and on-the-job training is necessary to pursue a sewing career. These graduating students were training in a range of areas, including fashion design or sewing and design. Students typically learn the fundamentals of sewing, from pattern layout to machine operation and garment finishing while designing an item. At the event, the president of the Latrikunda Sabiji Tailors Association, Modu Saliu Jallo, said the association was formed in 2016 to foster unity and sharing of knowledge, skills and experience amongst the tailors in Latrikunda Sabiji. Jallo believed that experience in tailoring is important for a successful career and appeals for support.
These graduates will never think of using the back way to Europe because they have a skill to depend on for their livelihood and to support their parents.
The Director of Arts and Culture at the National Center for Arts and Culture, Sir Omar Jallo, said students should learn both technical and traditional skills to increase their chances of success in the fashion industry. Jallo also called for the formation of a national union of tailors to empower them as one voice.
Our tailors, you have a challenge to look for us now because we want to also be identified with our own clothes so that once you put on your clothes, everybody will know that that is a Gambian. You don't even need to represent yourself to say, I am a Gambian. We are going to help you because it is our desire to identify ourselves with our costume.
The Deputy Mayor of KMC Musaba said tailors are undoubtedly among the most important people in society, citing the high demands for face masks, which has been remedied by tailors. Bag gave an assurance of the KMC's continuous support to the association.
Tailoring is a noble profession. My school fees was paid by a tailor, as my father was a tailor, and one of my daughters is learning to be a tailor. and I am a qualified tailor.
The National Assembly member for Latrikunda Sabiji, Sekou Marong, congratulated the graduates and called on young people to take up skills, adding despite his position, he's a qualified electrician.
Skills acquisition can help create employment for youths. Not everyone can sit in an office. We need skillful people like tailors. So I call on youths to learn skills.
Abbas Jaju, speaking on behalf of the graduates, thanked their trainers while reminding his fellow graduates to always remember and respect their masters and parents.
It is very good to acquire skills. If we have skills, we can make it in the Gambia. I tried the back way and spent over 2 years on the way struggling, but I couldn't succeed. I decided to come back and learn skills. Thank God today I'm a qualified tailor.
The Gambia has a 60% youth population for whom unemployment remains their biggest challenge. Training youth in skill acquisition, especially in tailoring, should help create youth employment, which may discourage the so-called backward syndrome. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
Well, congratulations to the graduates. Latest statistics from the WHO rank Gambia at number 4 in the world for road traffic accidents. Some blame this shocking statistic on the number of properly qualified drivers on the road. Properly instructed drivers will make our roads safer. Front Star Driving School on Saturday tested over 30 students while being observed by the police to assess them after a month-long training. Babakar C has the rest of that.
The training and testing of these students has come at just the right time, as the police recently announced that drivers would be tested before renewal of their license. Front Star Driving School was established a year ago and have so far graduated dozens of students. The latest batch of students have undergone rigorous training and are now tested for the first time in front of the police. Amadou Jallo, the driving school's lecturer, has been working with the police on UN standards of driving for many years and co-founded a driving school. He told me the importance of going through the right channels before acquiring a license.
Gambians should learn how to drive, not to wake up in the morning or at the corners. You just move a car 1-2 days and you say, I am a driver. This brings much of our accidents which are happening in this country can be avoided if people knows what they are doing. And our drivers should have discipline. All right, and I am thanking Front Star Driving School what they have introduced to their students. They normally have theory before practical, and where they will be taught about road signs and how to handle a vehicle. And if you come to the practical side, we all have seen they doesn't compromise standard. And what they are doing, if you fail, they refer you back to the class.
Panderi Ture is the communication director at Front Star Driving School. I engage him on what services the school offers to aspiring drivers and why one should choose Front Star.
Well, it's an open secret that accidents are here, road accidents here and there, and of course the rate is increasing overnight. This tells you that we need quality on our roads, and of course we need quality drivers. One thing that Front Star offers you is the unique opportunity, not just to learn and understand, but to put you in the right path, the path that you will know that you're on the right path when it comes to driving. Driving is a very sensitive trait, and if you don't understand it, it's a very sensitive trait. That's the time that you will be engaged in road accidents, reckless driving, drink driving. These are all issues that Front Star is packeting aside to make sure that every Gambian understands the good and the bad. We have managed to build a big reputation over the past 12 months or so. And of course, that's down to quality, efficiency, and of course, the service that we are providing to the Gambian people. So I think this is not new to us. We are looking to increase the number by the day, by the minute, by the hour. So we will keep increasing, but of course we will have to do it with quality.
Ansu Sar and Baba Jagana are students of the school, and after passing their test, told me that they have decided to go through the right channel and learn how to drive by acquiring the right knowledge about the traffic rules and driving ethics before taking to the roads. Front Star Driving School give the assurance that because of the high standards they set, they can satisfy all the needs of aspiring drivers who want to learn how to drive properly and safely, and they can help you accomplish this within a short period of time. The school points to the fact that after just 1 year, it can boast of having graduated dozens of students who have received training at the highest caliber. When these newly qualified drivers take to roads, they do so with the knowledge they have learned how to keep themselves and other road users safe. Babukar Si, Qtv News.
We will take another short commercial break, and when we come back, we have international and sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now on to some international news. Italy's ambassador to the Democratic Republic of Congo has been killed in the attack in the east of the country. Its foreign ministry has said Luca Attanasio, 43, died in hospital on Monday after the United Nations convoy he was traveling in came under fire near Goma. More in this report.
Luca Attanasio died of his injuries as the attackers opened fire on the convoy, killing another official and a driver in a World Food Programme convoy. The UN agency said in a statement that the over 2 fatalities have been identified as an Italian embassy official and a WFP driver. The delegation was set to visit a WFP school feeding program, and other passengers were also injured. Italy's foreign minister Luigi Di Maio, who left a meeting in Brussels to return home following the news, said the circumstances of this brutal attack are not yet known, but no effort will be spared to shed light on what happened. Di Maio said on Facebook, honoring the victims as 2 servants of the state. The Congolese army said its forces are combing the area to find out who the assailants are. The attack reportedly took place at around 10 a.m. local time near Goma, where about 100 rebel groups are active and are fighting over the country's natural resources for decades. DR Congo was for many years at the center of a brutal civil war. The conflict led to the loss of some 5 million lives between 1994 and 2003. But the end of the conflict did not mark an end to the violence. The UN's peacekeeping mission has been in DR Congo since 1999. It is one of the biggest peacekeeping operations in the world, with more than 17,000 personnel on the ground. Mr. Attanasio had represented Italy in the DR Congo since 2017. He joined the diplomatic service in 2003 and spent time in Morocco and Nigeria. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliou Cisse.
The daughters of assassinated U.S. black civil rights leader Malcolm X have requested that the murder investigation be reopened in light of new evidence. Here is the report.
A deathbed letter from a person who was a policeman at the time of Malcolm X's assassination in 1965 has infused fresh impetus into the call to reopen the murder case. Raymond Wood, an undercover police officer at the time, alleged in his letter that the FBI and the New York City Police Department, the NYPD, conspired to cover up details of the assassination and undermine the civil rights movement. The letter was read out on Saturday by his family, in which Wood says he was afraid he would face major consequences if he had gone public with the information in his lifetime. Wood confessed in the letter that he played a part in the arrest of 2 members of Malcolm X's security team just before the shooting, and that one of the 3 people convicted for Malcolm's murder, who died in prison in 2009, was wrongfully convicted. He says, and I quote, "I participated in actions that, in hindsight, were deplorable and detrimental to the advancement of my own black people. My actions on behalf of the New York City Police Department were done under duress and fear." End of quote. Citing the letter, one of Malcolm X's daughters, Ilyasa Shabazz, called on the authorities to reopen the case, saying, "Any evidence that provides greater insight into the truth behind that terrible tragedy should be thoroughly investigated." In 2020, the Manhattan District Attorney launched a review of the convictions after meeting representatives of the Innocence Project, a non-profit legal group campaigning for justice for individuals it says have been wrongly convicted. Malcolm X was gunned down at the age of 39 at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem while preparing to give a speech on 21st of February 1965. 3 men were convicted of the murder. The men, all members of the Nation of Islam political and religious movement, were each sentenced to life in prison. One of them has since died, while the other 2 have been paroled. The convictions, however, have always been suspect, as many legal observers believe that the evidence on which they were convicted was thin. And over the years, these were tracking Malcolm X and the mysterious lack of a police presence at the Audubon ballroom on that fateful day. 56 years on from his death, Malcolm X's memory remains tied to that of his great rival, Martin Luther King Jr. Their words and symbolism have endured, even as the true stories behind their assassinations seemingly remain shrouded in mystery. By the early 1960s, Malcolm X had emerged as a leading voice of a radicalized wing of the civil rights movement, believing that civil rights in America should be won by any means necessary, presenting a dramatic alternative to Dr. King's vision of a racially integrated society achieved by peaceful means. Their divergent paths to Uhuru, perhaps reflecting their life experiences. Malcolm Little, as he was known then, dropped out of school at 15. Had a job shining shoes, then became a kitchen help on the Yankee Clipper train between New York and Boston. He became involved in the criminal underworld and soon turned to selling drugs. In 1946, he was arrested on charges of larceny and sentenced to 10 years in jail, where he read constantly, devouring books from the prison library in an attempt to make up for the years of education he had missed. He joined the Nation of Islam, a small sect of black Muslims who embraced the ideology of black nationalism, the idea that in order to secure freedom, justice and equality, black Americans needed to establish their own state entirely separate from white Americans. Before his release from prison in 1952, he changed his name to Malcolm X. Due primarily to his efforts, the Nation of Islam grew from a mere 400 members at the time he was released from prison to 40,000 members by 1960. In 1964, he left the group, traveled to North Africa and the Middle East, and made the pilgrimage to Mecca, where he converted to traditional Islam and again changed his name, this time to El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. He returned to the United States less angry and more optimistic about the prospects for a peaceful resolution to America's race problems. The true brotherhood I had seen had influenced me to recognize that anger can blind human vision, he said. Just as El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz appeared to be embarking on a spiritual and ideological transformation, he was assassinated. He has since become the subject of numerous movies, stage plays and other works. In 1992, Spike Lee directed Denzel Washington in the title role of his movie Malcolm X. Both the film and Washington's portrayal of Malcolm X received wide acclaim and were nominated for several awards, including 2 Academy Awards. In addition, a street and a university have been named in his honor. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
On to some sports news. The group stage of the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations is nearing completion, with only Group C, which is Gambia's group, yet to be completed, with 2 matches to decide who joins the 5 teams that have secured spots into quarterfinals. Our sports reporter Mamadou Gajaga takes a look at this.
Cameroon sealed their place with an emphatic 4-1 victory against Mozambique, their 3rd straight win, securing top spot in Group A. Son of Cameroon legend Samuel Eto'o, Etienne Eto'o produced a man-of-the-match performance, scoring a brace and assisting another in Cameroon's win. Etienne is the son of perhaps one of the most celebrated and decorated African players of all time, with Eto'o Senior's 4 CAF African Player of the Year awards, as well as 2 Africa Cup of Nations winners' medals with the Indomitable Lions. Cameroon fans had been calling for the young Eto'o to be included in the starting lineup, and he didn't disappoint. Cameroon are joined by Uganda, who finished second on 6 points after 3 matches, winning 2 and losing 1. In Group B, 2 goals within a minute early in the first half propelled debutant Central African Republic to the quarterfinals after a hard-earned and deserved 2-1 victory over Tunisia's young Carthage Eagles at the Olympic Stadium in Nouakchott on Sunday. The result saw CAR finish second in Group B with 4 points, equal with Tunisia, who came third, losing out on the head-to-head result. Tunisia, however, squeezed through into the last 8 as they are assured of finishing as one of the two best third-place teams. In Group C, Ghana and Morocco appear to have already sealed their quarter-final places, leaving Gambia and Tanzania to battle for a place with a win in their final games to have any chance of qualifying among the third-place finishers. The Young Scorpions play against the Black Satellites of Ghana, while Morocco's Young Athlete Lions will face Tanzania in their final game, with both matches being played simultaneously. Mamudu Gajaga, Qtv News.
Before we end this news bulletin, let's take a quick look at our main stories. As the TRRC public hearings resumed, two friends told their ordeal after being accused of being anti-government. In the week of the University of the Gambia's convocation ceremony, esteemed Gambian Professor Gabriel Fall gave the university's first convocation lecture in over a decade. In business news, a poultry business told us how it can produce enough chicken to cater for the country's needs. We heard how equipping young people with tailoring skills can open up paths to business and dissuade them from attempting dangerous irregular migration journeys. As the Gambia struggles with some of the world's worst road traffic accident statistics, we heard from one driving school which is preparing students to be well-prepared and safe drivers. In international news, Italy's ambassador to the Democratic Republic of Congo has been killed in an attack in the east of the country. The family of slain civil rights leader Malcolm X called for the investigation into his killing to be reopened following a deathbed confession, which has shed new light onto the incident. In sports news, at the Under-20 AFCON in Mauritania, Gambia's Young Scorpions seek victory against Ghana to ensure they make it through to the kick-out stages. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Do join us at 10 for another bulletin. Thanks for watching and do take care of yourselves.